So after Bernie Sanders exited the Democratic primary, he promised that he would create several organizations to carry on the torch of his historic campaign. And I'm happy to report that the first organization has launched, called Our Revolution. So here's a clip of Bernie Sanders talking about that at its launch event.
Tonight, I want to introduce you to a new independent nonprofit organization called Our Revolution, which is inspired by the historic Bernie 2016 presidential campaign. Over time, Our Revolution will involve hundreds of thousands of people. These are people who will be fighting at the grassroots level for changes in their local school boards, in their city councils, in their state legislatures, and in their representation in Washington. We helped write the strongest and most progressive democratic platform in the history of the United States of America. While we did not get everything we wanted, it is fair to say that that document is an extremely progressive document. And let me also say this. If anybody thinks that that document and what is in that platform is simply going to be resting on a shelf somewhere, accumulating dust, they are very mistaken. We are going to make bring that platform alive and make it the blueprint for moving the Democrats forward in Congress and all across this country. We change the conversation regarding the possibilities of our country. That is what we change. We redefined what the vision and the future of our country should be. And let me, speaking only for myself, tell you what to me the political revolution means. And it means to me nothing less than the transforming of the United States of America, the transformation of our country into a society in which we will not continue to have a handful of billionaires controlling our economic, political, or media life.
Now, one would think that this should be an exciting time for progressives, right? Because, this is what we wanted. We want the revolution to continue past Bernie Sanders because it wasn't never really about Bernie. It was about the ideas that he represented. But the problem is that there are some people that are still really hurt by his endorsement of Hillary Clinton, and they're not inclined to support this organization. And also, a problem is that it's been off to a really, really shaky start thus far. So 8 core staff members have resigned in protest, and the group's entire core organizing department quit as well. And also, there were people in the digital positions that up and left too. So we see mass resignations at the start of this organization. Now, Bernie Sanders even reached out to them and asked them to reconsider quitting, but they just outright refused. So the question is, what the hell is going on? Because these are people who worked with Bernie Sanders' campaign and are now deciding to abandon him when he's trying to have his progressive revolution live on. So what's happening? Well, it seems as though Jeff Weaver, Bernie Sanders' former campaign manager, is at the heart of the controversy. So the New York Times explains that at the heart of the issue, according to several people who left, was deep distrust of and frustration with Mr. Weaver, whom they accused of wasting money on television advertising during Mr. Sanders' campaign, mismanaging campaign funds by failing to hire staff members or effectively target voters, and creating a hostile work environment by threatening to criticize staff members if they quit. Claire Sandberg, who was the organizing director at Our Revolution and had worked on Mr. Sanders' campaign, said she and others were also concerned about the group's tax status. As a 501c4 organization, it can collect large donations from anonymous sources, and that a focus by Mr. Weaver on television advertising meant that it would fail to reach many of the young voters who powered Mr. Sanders' campaign and are best reached online. I left and others left because we were alarmed that Jeff would mismanage this organization as he mismanaged the campaign, she said, expressing concern that Mr. Weaver would betray its core purpose by accepting money from billionaires and not remaining grassroots funded and plowing that billionaire cash into TV instead of investing it in building a genuine movement. The staff members who quit also said that they feared that the 501c4 designation meant that the group would not be able to work directly with Mr. Sanders or the people that he had encouraged to run for office because such organizations are not allowed to coordinate directly with candidates. Alright, so there's a lot going on there clearly, so we'll try to unpack it. But first, I'll just say that when it comes to the claim that Jeff Weaver mismanaged Bernie Sanders' campaign, I'm honestly split on this. I don't know whether or not that is true. I didn't work for Bernie Sanders, so I don't know the internal dynamics that went on there, but I'm split, so I'll kind of tell you my thoughts on that. And also, if it is the case that Jeff Weaver did, in fact, create a hostile work environment, that's indefensible. I can't defend him there. But I mean, there's probably some truth to that claim because I did like Weaver because he was very snappy, and I think that with all the dirt Hillary surrogates and the corporate media were trying to throw at him and Bernie Sanders, Bernie needed someone who was kind of a guard dog that would shoot down bullshit, and Weaver was like that. So it's not too surprising to me that someone with that type of personality wouldn't be very fun to work with. And just from an operational perspective, I'm sure that there are some criticisms of Jeff Weaver that they had, which are valid. So sure, you can say that campaign funds would be better spent on X rather than Y, but from my point of view, I didn't get the sense that Jeff Weaver was a bad campaign manager. So I mean, when it comes to that part of their contention with Weaver, I don't know enough about his competency level as a campaign manager from within, but I would probably side with the staffers that resigned and say that there's at least a kernel of truth to what they're saying. But with that being said, here's where I disagree with their criticism of Weaver. So they took issue with him allocating money mostly to television advertising because it fails to reach younger voters who don't watch television. But, I mean, is that the correct strategy? I would argue yes. And this is because when you're running a campaign, you want to focus on the demographics that you don't currently have. Bernie Sanders already had younger voters, so by advertising to them online, it would be a waste of money because they already knew about him. So to actually run these television advertisements and try to attract older voters who Bernie Sanders didn't have the support of, I think that's a good strategy because older voters would never hear about Bernie Sanders if you just advertised online. Whereas younger people, they already knew about Bernie Sanders. It was kind of a word of mouth thing. They saw him online. They watched YouTube videos. They watched progressive media shows like the Humanist Report and Secular Talk and Young Turks. And they heard about him that way. So young people, they know about Bernie Sanders. Old people didn't know about Bernie Sanders. So I think that Jeff Weaver was correct to try to target them by advertising on television. Also, I don't necessarily think that it's fair to say that Jeff Weaver just outright mismanaged Bernie Sanders' campaign because you have to look at what happened and what he did. Bernie Sanders overcame a 60-point deficit and nearly won in spite of the election fraud and the DNC's attempts to sabotage his campaign. So I mean, when you take that into account, I wouldn't say that a campaign that did that and pulled that off was mismanaged. It doesn't seem correct to me. Now, with that being said, Jeff Weaver is not above criticism, and I'm sure that the people who actually worked closely with him had some legitimate concerns. But the problem is that I didn't work with Jeff Weaver. I saw how the campaign just exploded, but I don't know what happened behind the scenes. And so, moving away from Jeff Weaver, so they were disappointed that they wouldn't be working closely with Bernie Sanders, but Bernie Sanders knows that that's not a good look to hold public office and then have a potentially massive organization. So he doesn't want this to look like the Clinton Foundation 2.0. So I think Bernie Sanders is correct to distance himself, but at the same time, I understand there's this disappointment that they want someone who is responsible for creating this organization and galvanizing the movement to be at the forefront of it. They want him to be the captain of the ship, but if he's going to remain in Congress, that's not possible, and it doesn't look good for him to have this organization that has millions of dollars maybe, and, you know, it just looks bad. It's a bad look, so he can't be associated with it. So I think he's doing the correct thing to distance himself because he doesn't want it to look as though there's corruption going on, even if they're not going to take money from billionaires. Now, getting to that, with that status designation, if they are a 501c4 organization, it does give them the potential to accept donations from billionaire donors. And Claire Sandberg, who's one of the people who is resigning, she said that Jeff Weaver wanted the organization specifically to be set up as a 501c4 so that way they can accept billionaire money. Now, I have no idea if this is true, but Larry Cohen, the board chair of the organization, he's claiming that there will be no donations from billionaires. And I'm actually inclined to believe him, because what happens if this organization does take money from billionaires? You lose legitimacy like that. The people who supported Bernie Sanders are not going to support an organization that's bankrolled by billionaires, because I'm not going to give you my hard-earned dollars. You can get that from the billionaires if you're already taking money from them. So like with Bernie Sanders, I had no problem donating to him. I donated multiple times to him. But with Hillary Clinton, my response to her when she tries to do fundraisers is, no, go talk to George Soros. Go talk to your billionaire donors. You're not going to ask us for money, because we actually have to work for a living to make our money. So if they actually were to take money from billionaire donors, it discredit the organization. But on the other side of the coin, as a 501c4 organization, they don't have to disclose the names of their donors. So there's that part. And also, I would think that her skepticism about this organization accepting billionaire donations would probably be because she just distrusts and dislikes Jeff Weaver altogether. So the fact that he's heading it probably gives her a really bad idea in her mind. But there were reports that Jeff Weaver was headed to California to meet with billionaire Tom Steyer to see if he would donate. But on the other side of the coin, Jane Sanders confirmed on Twitter that they would only be raising money from small grassroots contributors. So I don't know what the hell is true and what's not true. I don't know. If it is the case that this organization will be taking money from billionaire donors, I don't want anything to do with it. But I don't know if they're going to be doing that. We have conflicting claims here. I would just think that they wouldn't take billionaire donations, because that would violate everything that Bernie Sanders stood for. I don't give a shit if the billionaires agree with me. By giving them money, by giving our revolution money, that drowns out all of our voices. Because if they want one issue to be more important than our issues, then that's going to be what happens. So it wouldn't make sense that they're going to take billionaire donations. So I don't know what to believe. I'm going to refrain from making a judgment, and I'm going to see how it plays out. But I'm going to say that I don't think they would be stupid enough to take billionaire donations. But if they are, you don't have my support. So when it's all said and done, we have reasons to be disappointed. We really do. But at the same time, I would tell people to refrain from being overly skeptical about this organization, because I think it does have potential. And look, even though it may not be much now, it can morph into a great organization. Now, it's useful because you can see the various issues that are important and actually look at progressive candidates that are running and support them. Now, my hopes is that it would be something like the NRA, where they rate members who are running for Congress and kind of give them a score as to how progressive they are based on the ideals that they actually support. So when you have people like Hillary Clinton and Debbie Wasserman Schultz saying, I'm a progressive, you can actually go to Our Revolution and see, actually, you have a 60% rating, so you're not really progressive. That's what I want. I would love to see that. Now, with that being said, that's a lot of work. But I mean, if we could fund this organization by grassroots means exclusively, we could potentially make this organization very powerful. Because if you get on its bad side, well, then you know that you won't have any credibility among actual progressives. So the takeaway is that, should we be a little bit apprehensive about this organization just based on the conflicting claims that we've heard? Yeah, we should. But I am not willing to throw in the towel just yet and stick a fork in Our Revolution, because this really could potentially grow into something that's huge. So I would encourage you to get behind this organization, potentially donate to it. I want this organization to succeed, and I'm not willing to just throw it under a bus because it started off rocky. Let's give it a chance. Let's not be overly skeptical about it. Let's try to support this organization, and we need it. We need it. If we really want to fight for progressive policy positions, if we really want to get Bernie-crats elected, I think this organization is potentially an effective way to do that. So I'm going to support this organization. I do have my reservations. Now, I want to make sure that they're not going to take billionaire money, but I don't think they will. If they will, then I'm going to be the first one to come out and call them out on it. But I will keep you updated on this organization. Let's all hope that it succeeds.